Hey everyone, it's Joe Waxman, and I am here with fellow astrologer Kaitlyn Maura. And I've known Kaitlyn for a few years through Facebook. Um, she has her own group. Uh, Remind me of your group?
It's never mind the BS. Here's the astrology.
Yeah, and she's also an admin on my group. I love astrology. Um, but Kaitlyn does readings and she does articles. Uh, so so Kaitlyn, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. All of a sudden, like I feel like anxiety's coming up. I'm like not usually nervous when I do videos, but all of a sudden I'm like nervous. Wow. Anyway, that's okay. I want to know about how you got into astrology.
Okay. Well, it's kind of a funny story because I used to hate astrology. Like there was no way I would ever believe in it. Like I probably first came across horoscopes as a little kid, and I remember reading about the traits of my sign, which is Libra, and thinking this is not me at all. I remember reading that we were charming and that we were gullible. And I'm like, I don't want that to be me. Like, I was always a huge believer in creating your own destiny.
Mhm.
And I kind of didn't want to believe because I didn't want to believe that my life was controlled by the stars. But at the same time, I always had this feeling, this knowing that people had these different energies that went beyond nature and nurture. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Just interject for a moment. You have a lot more going on than I mean everyone does, but like you have some other placements that are very different from Libra, obviously, right? So that would kind of throw the Libra, horoscope.
Yeah, well, I feel like the Libra in me is pretty strong.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah. And so that's the thing is when I learned about astrology, I learned, that we have whole charts and that we aren't just this one sign. But I actually came across astrology. I was at this school that I hated, and the principal asked me what my sign was. And she's like, wait, let me guess. And she's like, is it Leo? And I was kind of offended by that because my dad was a Leo, and at the time we were kind of fighting. And I'm like, no, I'm a Libra. And she's like, oh, I'm an Aquarius. Libra and Aquarius get along. And I'm like, well, in that case, I don't believe in astrology. And it's kind of funny because within that same week, astrology kept coming up. One of my friends mentioned to me how she hated Libras, and I was like, but I'm a Libra, and I knew nothing about astrology really until that point. It was not something I thought about, but within the same week, it just kept coming up in my conversations with all these different people.
Mhm.
And because I kept hearing about it, I decided to look into it because it's I guess because I'm a Libra, I like to be fair, and I don't like jumping to conclusions about things and making a firm decision without researching it first. And so I decided to actually research it. And I looked up the signs of my family and my friends, and I realized how accurate it was and how we had full charts. And I read about the elements and the modalities, and it was easy for me to memorize. It was almost like I had already known it.
Mhm.
It was almost like I had already known astrology all my life, somewhere in the back of my mind. Maybe it's because I grew up watching Sailor Moon. um,
I've heard that a lot. A lot of astrologers feel that way, like, and I felt that way too. Like I just knew it from past life, and I've heard that many times from.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And it's interesting because I had later found out that I was actually going through my nodal return
Mm,
at this time.
mm,
And it was actually my, in Indian astrology, it was my Rahu. Am I saying it right?
mhm.
Is my Rahu Dasha?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's kind of interesting. It's almost like I was fated to do astrology. Um,
Yeah, it seems so. And
yeah.
yeah. Well, I've noticed that you write articles. I read one of your articles recently. It was really well researched and well written. So when did that start?
Thank you. Well, it started like around after I got out of college. I just always wanted to be a writer all my life. Like I've always written stories and things of that nature. And I just like, because I'm interested in astrology and it's like a hobby of mine, I just thought, well, that's something I know a lot about. Why not write articles about it? And
Mhm.
it kind of stuck. Like I've been doing it for a few years now. Which article did you read recently, if you don't mind me asking?
The last one was the about the election, the Trump versus.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, just purely on the research analytical side. I mean, I know we have differences in our leanings and our bias, so I don't really want to get into that, but just
Well, I mean, we can talk about the astrology of it because to be quite honest, I don't like either of the politicians. And I started writing a political astrology series like because of that, because I've noticed that on both sides, like the predictions seem to be full of bias. Like in 2016, like everyone thought it was going to be Hillary just because they liked Hillary. Like,
well, I don't know if everyone did. Certainly some people, and certainly
yeah.
people definitely have a hard time overstepping their bias for whatever reason, and I completely understand that. It's a very human thing to have opinions, you
For
know,
sure.
whether you
Like
take one
I
side
don't
or the other.
pretend I don't pretend not to have any biases.
Right.
Like of course I do, and of course that probably shows like in the tone of my writing, but like I try to look at the actual facts
What
rather than
else? You're a Libra. I mean, that's kind of in your nature to be fair and balanced and to look at both
yeah, for
sides.
sure.
So, I mean, that's.
Yeah.
But okay, so you have your group. What else? I mean, what else is going on with you in your sort of astrological life?
Okay. I've so I'm writing a series of articles about the decans, which are this each sign of the zodiac is split up into three parts of 10 equal degrees, and they have their own like sub rulers that can give you a little bit more information on the sign.
Mhm.
And I'm also starting a series of articles about the planets, actually. Like, I'm trying to look at each planet from like a deeper lens by actually looking at the astronomy of it.
Huh.
Like I'm really, because that's something like I'm curious about. I'm curious about how the actual like science of the planets like fits into their qualities like astrologically. Like for example, like Neptune is very a very like foggy kind of planet.
Mhm.
And so like I'm curious about how that compares with like astrology. Like Neptune is very foggy. Like it causes a lot of delusions and confusion.
Mhm.
And so I'm writing about the actual like astronomical properties of the planets and comparing it with the mythology of it too,
Mhm.
like the mythology of the Greek and Roman gods that they're named after,
Yeah.
to try to get like a deeper understanding of what they mean. And
I,
from that we can kind of get a deeper understanding of the signs too, like the signs they rule.
I think that's really cool, because I think it definitely plays a part. You know, and you know, when they discover new asteroids, they're always looking to define the meaning of the asteroid. They're always looking at where the asteroid lies, or if it's a dwarf planet, where it lies. What are the astronomical implications that go into the meaning,
Mm-hmm.
not just the mythology, because you have to wonder about the mythology because they're just the people who discover them are just naming them. And
Exactly.
you know, like how much of the mythology is really influential. It seems like a lot of it is, but then you have to wonder, and it brings me back to the name of your group, never mind the BS, here's astrology. Like how much of astrology is really influential and how much is just sort of you know, kind of extra baggage that we tend to believe, but we're not really sure that it's accurate. And you know, my leaning is like always, you know, questioning whether different astrological practices are legit or not. You know, do they really
Mm-hmm.
work?
Yeah.
Just wishful thinking.
Mm-hmm. I mean, like when I got into astrology, I realized that it was one of the oldest or the oldest science in the world. I know a lot of scientists who would probably argue with me on that, but it used to be astronomy and astrology used to be one and the same.
Mm.
They used to not be separate.
Mm.
So they actually found out that the oldest writings in like Sumeria were actually astrological or astronomical tablets.
Mm.
So I really think that there is something to it because it goes so far back.
Mm.
But that's the thing is like I try to keep my astrology rooted into the tradition of it.
Yeah.
Um I feel like a lot of modern astrology I've realized over the years is a lot of fluff
Mm-hmm.
and extra baggage that isn't really needed. I mean, some of it I think is true. Like I know traditional astrology doesn't focus as much on the personality aspects of as modern does. Um, but I feel like a lot of it these days is fluff.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It appeals to the narcissistic, egotistical side of, you know,
Exactly.
people's wants. They just want to hear about themselves. It's not really actionable. It's not really you know, getting to the core of anything. And I think astrology has to serve a purpose. Otherwise, it's just, you know, feeding the ego, and that's not really what I want to do. That's not why I
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Like
astrology.
I think that's why it's so popular. It's because everyone wants to know their charts because they want to know about themselves. And I mean, there's some good things that come from that. Like if you're actually trying to get a deeper understanding of yourself and how you work,
Yeah.
like that's a good thing. It can be a tool for growth. But I feel like a lot of people like just want to hear about how great they are or like they want to justify their negative behaviors. Like they think, okay, I can be manipulative. I'm a Scorpio, you know?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, it starts there. It starts on the personality level, and that's why it's all very much sun sign focused, because that
Mm-hmm.
relates to the ego and the personality, and that's where it starts, obviously. But it doesn't end there. That's just the beginning.
Exactly. And well, the other thing is I think it should be used as a tool to understand others. Like that's how I first saw it when I got into it. But a lot of people use it as a tool to judge and shame others, and they never go beyond that.
Right, right. Yeah, it's very much a source of pride and ego, and I'm a Leo, or I'm a Scorpio, or I'm this, I'm that, and that means I'm better than you, and you know,
Yeah.
signs, whatever those, you know, whatever, take your pick, whatever those signs are, they suck. Hate them.
Mm-hmm.
Stupid. Um,
Yeah.
obviously, I mean that's the low end of astrology we're talking about.
Yeah, exactly. But it can
Go ahead.
but it can also be used to like help understand other people
Mhm.
and to like form better relationships with them in a way.
Yeah, you can use it to understand yourself and understand others, and that's what I try and do when I give a reading. I try and find the something actionable, because otherwise it's just, like useless, fairly useless. But unless you can use it to better yourself or better your life, then I don't see much point in it. I mean, yeah, there is,
Yeah.
but still, I still think there has to be something you can walk away with and be like, okay, this is where I need to focus on. This is what I need to do.
Yeah, for sure.
I like that. So it's a crazy, crazy year we're having here.
Hmm.
I mean, that's kind of the understatement of the year. Um, I wanted to ask you about your thoughts about, so let's talk about the big transits that we've had. All right. I know my experience that happened in January with the Saturn and Pluto. What's your ideas or take on all that? What was your experience of that?
Well, I've been actually dreading 2020 for years. I remember it started out like back when I was still in college, I was just looking at my solar returns and saw my solar return for 2020 and thought it was like going to be the year of my death or something because I had all these eight house transits too, and I was just terrified. And then I found out that all these big things were happening, like Saturn conjunct Pluto, Jupiter Saturn conjunct Saturn, Jupiter conjunct Pluto. I thought it was going to be like the end of the world or something. I
Uh,
mean, not literally,
Not too far off though.
but the end of something. I thought it might be the end of America for sure. And so I've been like dreading this year for years, and everyone thought I was crazy because I told people that I thought travel was going to be shut down.
Good prediction.
Yeah, and a pandemic was a possibility that I considered, but
Wow.
I was actually originally thinking more along the lines of a world war.
Mhm.
I'm glad that hasn't happened yet, but
It's not too far off either. I'd say spiritual, psychological war.
yeah. And but then like when it actually happened, and the Saturn Pluto conjunction actually happened, and the pandemic actually started happening, like I was oddly calm
Hmm.
because it's like I knew that it was gonna happen.
Mhm.
I don't know how to explain it, but like I was oddly calm about it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I wasn't oddly calm about it. I'll tell you why. I just want to share my experience. But I was ahead, I knew something big was coming, and I was telling my moms like, holy moly, like all these conjunctions and the Saturn Pluto conjunctions coming up and blah blah blah, this is gonna happen. Then when it happened, actually, I went through the word like I think it was a combination of that conjunction and some other things with my solar arc progressions, but I just went through the worst, most horrible time, like internally. Like I felt
Oh yeah,
like my
for
heart was
sure. I
purging.
don't mean to sound like it was a good time for me because it was not. It was actually pretty horrible. I kind of had a breakdown, but like I was less fearful, if that makes any sense.
Right.
But I was more depressed.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um
It's the weirdest thing. My mom went through a really hard time too, just all on her own. We both at the exact same time as the Saturn Pluto conjunction. It was,
mm, yeah, is it aspecting your chart at all?
I mean, not particularly strong, but there was a very strong um, I, on the solar arc. Uranus was directly opposite my sun,
Oh wow.
or if that in combination had to do with it. And I had a lot of trauma and anxiety, which actually it healed it. And
Oh
this June,
wow.
I started my YouTube channel because yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I just had tons of like past childhood trauma that all came up during that time, like in a big way.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
it's crazy.
Yeah, I'm glad it gave you the opportunity to work through that. Um, yeah, Saturn and Pluto are actually were actually squaring my sun
Ah,
and my chart ruler Mercury. So it was hitting my chart pretty heavily. And then Venus went retrograde, like on my ascendant,
wow.
and Mars went retrograde, like directly opposite my sun. So,
So, like, what do you think was like, do you think that was the driving factor? Or it's hard to say the, but like, do you think it was like that was the major component for the coronavirus? Or, I mean, I heard a lot of people say it was it's the Jupiter Pluto conjunction that,
yeah, well, I think it all combines together. Like
yeah.
I've read a lot about like previous pandemics happened during Saturn Pluto or Jupiter Pluto.
Mhm.
So I think the combination of all those planets together in Capricorn
Uh-huh.
are the reason.
And probably, what do you think about Uranus in Taurus? I mean,
Well, I think it plays a part because I mean Taurus rules over our resources and food production and our environment. So, and I think like part of what's happening probably has something to do with that.
mhm,
But I don't think a single planet in a sign
right,
is the driving factor. I think it's more like the aspects
right,
between them.
right. But Uranus in Taurus is, I guess, in its fall. Yeah, because it's exalted in Scorpio.
Oh,
So
really?
it doesn't,
Yeah.
Uranus doesn't do very well in Taurus. So, and
Interesting. Yeah.
I've
I
also heard people relating Neptune in Pisces as well to it. Uh,
mm,
so it's probably all the whole combination of things, you know?
yeah, for sure. And I think well, I actually think the nodes have something to do with it too.
Huh.
I thought it was really interesting that the lockdown happened when North Node was at 0 degrees Cancer
Oh,
and the South Node was at 0 degrees Capricorn because, like people were out of work and like confined to their homes. That's like Cancer in action.
yeah, that's interesting.
Cancer rules the home, the family, emotions. Capricorn rules work, career. Um, it was like people learning what is like truly important and meaningful to them.
And 0 degrees is usually considered just kind of goes to extremes because there's no, it's a,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, yeah. That's really interesting. I didn't think about that. Yeah.
And then it moved into Gemini and Sagittarius.
Hmm.
And that's kind of similar in some ways because Sagittarius, people think of like foreign travel,
Right.
and Gemini is more about like the community.
Hmm.
So it's like instead of um, paying attention to what's abroad or whatever, like since we're not traveling, it's like we're being forced to form communities like here at home or online. But yeah.
Yeah. A lot to think about there, for sure. So I saw a graph that was really interesting that they totally correlated to the surges in coronavirus with the Jupiter-Pluto conjunctions. It was
Mm.
whole June and November. Those were the high points, and they were saying, well, since we had the last Jupiter-Pluto conjunction, it should taper off from here on out, which I really hope so. I think everyone hopes that.
Yeah, I hope so. Um, we do have the Great Conjunction coming up on December 21st. And that's really interesting because for the past 200 years or so, the Great Conjunction, which is the conjunction between Jupiter and Saturn, has been occurring exclusively in Earth signs. And now it's going to start a whole new cycle in air signs.
Mhm.
And it's going to be on 0 degrees Aquarius.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah,
it's kind of like the Asia Aquarius.
yeah. Yeah.
And I mean, I'm a little worried, honestly, because on that same exact day, there will be a Mars square to Pluto.
Oh,
Exact.
wow. That's interesting. So that's going to carry that energy forward for at least the next 20 years, but maybe even somewhat for the next 200 years. Um, so that's interesting. Um, definitely. I didn't think about that one. Um, incidentally, I just want to throw this in here. That's my Saturn opposition because my
Oh, really?
0 degrees Leo and my Chiron's at 0 degrees Taurus. And my ascendant is like right in the beginning of Scorpio. So I got a big giant grand cross forming on that day.
Wow.
Interesting.
Yeah. I mean, it should be good for like maturing though. Like
Oh,
it's kind
definitely. And I'm excited because Jupiter's there. It's not like just Saturn's alone there because it would have been, if Jupiter wasn't there,
of,
it'd
yeah, exactly.
be alone. But Jupiter's there. It should be better than otherwise, I'm thinking.
Yeah, for sure.
But it's
Yeah, it
exciting.
could be a good thing or it could be a bad thing, depending.
I'm thinking it's going to be a good thing. Why do you think it might be a bad thing?
I'm talking about Jupiter and Saturn as a whole, not like just for you.
Right. Yeah.
Just to clarify.
Right.
Um,
So yeah. Expand on that.
well, because Mars will be square Pluto on that same day, which is very much warrior energy.
Right.
Mars is in Aries, and then Pluto's in Capricorn,
Yeah.
and Pluto is, god of the underworld, and also it's the planet of death and like extremities. And like with Mars square Pluto, it's kind of like a fight to the death, is what it makes me think. But from whatever destruction that might happen, something good may come along.
It's a highly competitive aspect. I know because my father has this, and I read his chart to him, so I was researching it,
Mm-hmm.
and I know him in his life. It's highly competitive, very driven. Um, yeah, and if not handled correctly, it could very well play out, like you say, fight to the death. On a higher level, higher potential, it creates just a very, very strong energy.
Yeah.
If that energy is transcended, I believe squares are there to be unified, right? The most difficult aspects are there to be unified. We have to find out how to, through growth and evolution, how to bring them together harmoniously. So
Yeah, for sure. I agree.
even the most difficult aspect can be positive. It just takes a lot of work and effort. But
Yeah.
it is a difficult aspect. I agree with you there.
Yeah, I agree. And then with the sign of Aquarius itself is very much about it's about technology and advancement and progress.
Mhm.
And that should be a good thing, right? But I feel like it very much depends on how we, like as a whole, like as a society, um, handle that. Because I feel like it could be either spiritual progress or it could be material advancement.
Material what?
Material advancement. And when we focus too much on the material part of progress and not the spiritual component, we can kind of cause disasters.
But Aquarius is an air sign, so and we're moving from the great conjunctions in Earth over to air, so it does indicate much more of an intellectual.
Yeah, right. But I mean, if we have the intellectual component without the emotional component, it can cause dangers. Like, I'm thinking more in terms of technology and like how we decide to use technology. Like, are we gonna build more bombs with it? Or are we gonna, I don't know if you've seen Elon Musk like computer chip thing that he wants to put in us. Like, I
Yeah.
don't know. I'm just saying that it depends on how we use it.
I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
Here's some of the stuff that I came across. I just want to put this out here. Um, They're in the cycle of the ages, when we're talking like even bigger cycles, the precession of the equinox, 26,000 years. I don't know how much you've researched about that, but um, there's debate about when we're actually moving into the age of Aquarius. But at the point where we move into the age of Aquarius, we are moving, our solar system is moving above the ecliptic of the galaxy
Mhm.
into the upper half of the 26,000 year period. And so we're moving into the 13,000 year period of light rather than darkness. So I
That
have
is interesting.
I have the picture posted on my Facebook background page. It's, the S shape, and the ecliptic is right in the middle, and Aquarius lies above, Pisces lies below. I believe, and just by my understanding and my intuition and observation of the world, that we really are moving into the age of Aquarius.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, I think so too. And I don't mean to sound negative about it either. I kind of just feel like it can go either way.
mhm,
And I think to some extent, I think it's gonna get worse before it gets better.
mhm,
Like I think it's going to get better, but I think there might be some kind of disaster before then.
mhm,
Like I don't know how much you've researched about this, but you know how all these different cultures from around the world have like flood myths?
mhm.
Um, they say I've read in certain books that they think that the flood happened around the time of the last ice age,
Mhm.
like towards the end of the ice age, when I guess the ice caps might have started melting
Mhm.
or whatever. And you know when that was?
Um, that was probably at the 13,000 years ago.
Yeah, I think it was around like 12,000 years ago or something. I forget the exact number, but it was during the transition from the age of Leo to the age of Virgo.
Yeah,
And now we're transitioning from the opposite sides,
right.
Pisces and Aquarius. So I kind of feel on some level that we might be experiencing some of the same themes.
And there's potential for that. My understanding of that, however, is that some of that was due to humanity's cycles of needing to sort of like almost like grades, like where we didn't pass the grades, so we needed to restart. And humanity has restarted a couple of times because we just weren't
Yeah.
evolved enough to transition into a higher level.
Hmm.
But this time we are. That's what I've come to based on the information that
Yeah.
I've come across. That
Yeah,
we're
I hope you're right. But yeah, I'm thinking of it as kind of like another restart start level on some level.
I mean, there's always that potential. There's always that
Yeah.
potential. But from my understanding, we have humanity has evolved enough to make it to the next level, and we'll see how it works out. I mean, nobody knows the future for sure. You know, I have my South Node conjunct Jupiter, so I'm forever positive. I just can't help it.
Yeah. Um yeah, I mean, I think on like as individuals, like many of us have evolved to that point, but I think there's a lot of darker elements still present within society.
Oh, absolutely.
And so I guess what I'm trying to say is that I think society might do like a restart.
Certainly, a lot of people will not be coming with us into the new world, the age of Aquarius.
Yeah.
That's what I think. Um, but I do think like a lot of I think there's going to be wonderful. I think we have a wonderful future ahead of us. I really believe that as far as humanity and as far as people who are really on
Hmm.
the upper side of things, who are embracing evolution, who are embracing their own soul's growth, and who want want the best for all of humanity and the whole world and everything. I believe those are the people who are going to survive and who are going to carry on with life and who are going to inherit the new age.
Yeah, for sure. I agree.
And astrology is going to be huge. So we're in the right position, you know, as astrologers. We are going to in the age of Aquarius, astrology is going to become very popular among many others.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And my hope is that my hope for the future is that all these different fields will be less separate. Like I hope there will be less like separation between like the spiritual and the material, or the scientific and the magical. Like I was saying before, like astronomy and astrology used to be one and the same.
Right.
And I hope we can get back to that instead of breaking off into like separate factions.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree that the compartmentalization is really, you know, it's out of control. Everything's so compartmentalized and specialized, and you need your own language. And you know, every single field has its own specialized language, and it's all separate. And
Yeah. I mean, because Aquarius is very much kind of about unity and about community.
Yeah.
And so I do have some hope.
I have tons of hope. I mean, I think it's,
Yeah.
I think December 21st, 2020 is the most auspicious day we will probably ever live through. I mean, that's what I think, because it's just so magical. It's like 0 degrees Aquarius. The sun will be at 0 degrees Capricorn.
Mm-hmm.
I think Juno is also lining up. I can't, it's not, where is it, 0 degrees or like 1 degree Sagittarius, Mercury also. And yeah, it's the beginning of a new 20-year cycle, new 200-year cycle, I think new 2,000-year cycle, a new 13,000-year cycle.
Yeah.
Pretty amazing.
It really is. And so like there is a light at the end of the tunnel. Like all that's going on right now with coronavirus and everything, it's not going to last forever.
It won't last forever, but you know, we're not out of the woods yet.
No, not yet.
I've been looking at America's natal chart, and we're due for Pluto return.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're already experiencing it, but February of 2022, I think it's exact, and
Mm-hmm.
that will be from now until then, and then, you know, even after that, a couple years after that, next 4 years are going to be crazy.
Yeah, for sure. And I don't know if you read it, but I also wrote an article analyzing America's solar return chart.
Huh.
Yeah, and the chart has Sun in the 8th house, opposite Moon in the 2nd house, and it's conjunct Pluto. So that shows a transformation in like our financial system.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people are probably going to be out of work. There's probably going to be some kind of financial crisis.
Yeah.
And then also Mars is in the 4th house, which shows battles or wars right here at home.
Yeah.
Domestically.
Yeah.
So like a civil war, potentially.
Yeah. Definitely a lot of aggression at home. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it might not come to the point of a full-on war, but lots of unrest for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. That's crazy. And I also looked at the solar arc progressions on America's natal chart, and Pluto just entered at 0 degrees Libra, and Moon, because Pluto and Moon are semi-sextile exact in the natal chart, which also is very karmic. because that means Pluto
Mm-hmm.
the 12th house to the moon. So that's a karmic position. And then moon this December is entering 0 degrees. I guess it would be Virgo. No, I'm sorry. It would be Scorpio, 0 degrees Scorpio.
Interesting.
So that should also indicate some new, yeah, home life disturbance, karmic
Mm-hmm.
mission, 0 degrees also. So new beginnings all around.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's going to be a lot of upheaval and negative elements, but out of all this chaos, there will be some sort of rebirth or something positive to come out of it, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. That'll be really interesting. There's a lot going on in the world too that's very worrisome. There are certain trends that I just don't feel comfortable about with the corporate, medicine, vaccines, the globalism. I just feel like there's a lot of, just really wanting to control humanity through
Yeah, for
any means
sure.
possible. And I do not get a good feeling about how things, so I don't think it's just America. I really think it's the whole world.
No, it's not.
A lot of
Um,
really big, changes, turmoil. Um, and I don't know how it's all going to play out, except that I am ultimately hopeful and positive.
yeah, I'm obviously like more focused on America because that's where I live,
Sure.
but no, it's the whole world.
Mhm.
And all this control that you mentioned, that's definitely a manifestation of Saturn, Pluto in
Right.
Capricorn.
Right.
Because Capricorn is associated with governments and other institutions, it's associated with finance,
Hmm.
corporatism.
Hmm. Yeah, Saturn in Capricorn, and then Pluto brings in elements of the underworld, like there.
Yeah,
I think that's what's coming out is sort of like these underworldly controllers, like the earthly representation of Pluto's really coming out and coming into play, flexing their muscles. Um,
yeah. But a lot of it is like coming to the forefront
mhm.
and coming to light for people to see.
Yeah,
And because people are now aware of it, I don't think it's going to last very long because people are now fighting it. And that might be a manifestation of Mars and Aries.
well, yeah, it's like coming to a head, and like an animal is never more dangerous than when it's backed into a corner. So that's the scary part. Like if they feel like that the people are onto them, then they're not hiding anymore. They can really come out and show their fangs and do their worst. They don't really have to pretend anymore, which is the scary part because that's when they're the most dangerous. So
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, I've read a lot about how the sort of elite controllers who are controlling society from the underground sort of they want to um, integrate technology with humanity so that humanity is cut off from their spiritual connection. So that
Yes, and that's what I was trying to talk about before with the um, upcoming conjunction in Aquarius.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, and it can go either way, and I think that's what they're trying to do. They want to get technology so deeply embedded into humanity that we just become reliant on it and forget our spiritual power.
Exactly. Like, what are your thoughts on this new Elon Musk invention that he's trying to promote?
Oh, I think Elon Musk is just he's a puppet, you know.
Mm,
He said some stuff that's like I agree with. So I don't want to. I mean, everyone has their some level of autonomy, but I think he's still ultimately under their control. And I read all this or watched these videos where he was basically an actor, and he was just put into this position of like
Interesting.
or
Yeah, I just know he's been talking a lot about merging with AI,
yeah,
even
that's
though he in the past talked about how AI was dangerous. So I don't really understand. But he's saying that like his new invention, Neuralink, he wants to eventually be able to allow like humans to be like telepathic with each other, like through these devices.
yeah,
And my response to that is like we're already capable of telepathy.
exactly. Yeah, no thanks, cyborg.
Yeah, we're already capable of it, so we don't need like the technology element.
That is totally Pluto Illuminati influence. I mean, I I don't know how people feel about that's what I think. I mean, it's really like insidious stuff. With Bill Gates and the vaccines, Elon Musk with the microchipping inside your brain and all that. I'm not down with any of that because my background is very much based in nature. And nature
Hmm.
heals, and nature empowers, nature gives
Yeah.
everything we need. Um,
Yeah. Well, I'm not anti-vax at all, but I do think this like race to find a vaccine could potentially be dangerous if we're not careful about it, or if what we use isn't really a vaccine but something else.
well, yeah, I mean, they say that it's like RNA, you know, it's a new kind of vaccine that permanently alters your RNA, your DNA. Uh,
Yeah. I know that I know that Microsoft like has patented some kind of chip that's a cryptocurrency chip that its number is actually W060606. And when I heard about it, like I was initially like very skeptical, so I looked it up, and apparently like it's real on a patented website. Um, I do think that's a little suspicious.
I I believe it. I think there's a strong undercurrent of Satanism in going through a lot of things, but I mean that's another story. I don't know. I mean, a lot of people are like don't believe in that, but even if you don't believe in that, even if you're like think vaccines are great and whatnot, still there has to be. I believe there has to be choice. And what they want to do is make life impossible for people who don't vaccinate through this coronavirus, which is like 99.9 like 8% of the people recover if you're young and healthy enough. So I really don't.
Yeah, I don't know about that. 'Cause I do know a lot of people who have had it, and even though they've recovered, they're still dealing with the symptoms. And there's still a lot we don't know about this virus.
Mhm.
And even though people recover, a lot of them are left with more serious conditions from it.
I'm not saying like the virus isn't doesn't have its repercussions, but I still don't think it's the back to the control thing. Like I mean, I just don't think the control there's just too much control. Is what I'm saying, and they want to make it, if not mandatory, very very difficult to not be vaccinated. I think that people need to have their choice. Is basically what I'm saying.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. The mandatory vaccine thing does kind of make me suspicious. But like I said, I'm generally not anti-vax,
Mhm.
and I generally do hope for a vaccination, but I agree. Like I don't think it should be forced. I think it should be a choice. Because I think most people would choose smartly. I'm sorry.
I mean, well, no, whatever your choice is, I think that's fine because we're all individuals and we need to, be responsible for ourselves. Um,
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like I think people know what's best for them, and we don't need to be like forced into it. Like the idea of them forcing me to get a vaccine, like kind of makes me not want to take it.
Exactly. Me too.
You know, like where if I'm not forced, like I might, but like if they're forcing me, that makes me suspicious.
Yeah, absolutely. So what are your plans? Where are you where's the future going with you and astrology in your ideas, in your vision?
um I'm not really sure, like, because I never really intended to be like a professional astrologer.
Mhm.
Um, but I've been getting like so many requests for readings that like I can't keep up, like doing it all the time for free. So it's like maybe it's something that I should continue with,
Mm.
like I don't know. I'm considering getting certified.
Do you have like from so like taking a school course?
Yeah, yeah. I'm considering it.
Mhm. Any other plans?
Um, I don't know. It's kind of been a really uncertain time for me.
Mm.
Like ever since COVID happened.
Yeah. Mhm.
Um, it's like I'm kind of debating on changing my direction and maybe doing astrology full time. I'm not sure.
Well, I think our path chooses us. So I think if you gave it enough time, it'll become clear for you what you need.
Yeah.
So do you have any other thoughts about future transits and whatnot, things that are happening?
Um, I think we've discussed most of the big ones.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. Um,
What about, all right, so Uranus in Gemini, I mean, that's coming up in what, 6 years, I guess? 5, 6 years? That should be interesting, I think, because we'll have the air influence of, the great conjunction in Aquarius. And then I think around that time, um, Pluto will be moving into Aquarius too. So we're going to have tremendous air influence going on then. Any thoughts about that?
yeah, for sure. For sure. I mean, hopefully it will be a time of more freedom for everyone.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, and we have Pluto entering Aquarius too.
I think technology is going to just skyrocket during that time. And also cryptocurrency. I think it's building its roots now. I think even though Uranus is in Taurus, and Uranus is probably the significator of things like cryptocurrency and stuff like that, and Taurus does represent finance because Uranus doesn't do that well in Taurus. I think it's just building its roots while it's in Taurus. But once it hits, financial prediction, once Uranus hits Gemini, get in before then. Like get in now. Like if you want to invest in something, invest in cryptocurrency for Uranus in Gemini, because then it's going to just boom.
Yeah. Well, and another thing I think about Uranus and Taurus, I think it's also um, possibly might change our diets too.
How so?
I think I think people are starting to eat more like plant-based
Hmm.
and to have a better knowledge of how dangerous like the factory farming is and
Hmm.
how negative of an effect it has on our environment.
Yeah, I
And
can
I
see
think that's going to change.
when Uranus definitely brings awareness wherever it is. So, and Taurus can definitely bring, awareness to agriculture, Uranus in Taurus. So,
Yeah, because that's what because Taurus is the bull, and that's what bulls were used for in ancient times. They were used to plow the fields for agriculture.
mhm.
So
And that's a great thing because I'm a big, outspoken critic of modern, commercial factory farming. I think it's really, really awful.
yeah, for sure. And I don't know if people are gonna like stop eating meat altogether, but I think there is going to be a shift to more mindful eating.
Yeah,
And
absolutely. Absolutely. That's a good point. Well, Kaitlyn, I think we covered all the bases here.
yeah, thank you for having me on your show. It was nice talking to you.
Yeah, absolutely. And you do readings. I do readings. So, um, you can email me at macrogoldmachine@yahoo.com or find me on Facebook. Um, and how about, do you want to plug?
Yeah, you can message me on Facebook at Kaitlyn Maura, or you can read my blogs, which the link for that would be vocal.media/Kaitlyn Maura. And also I have my astrology group, Never Mind the BS, Here's the Astrology on Facebook.
And my group is I Love Astrology. So, and Kaitlyn's an admin on my group. So join our groups. And okay, Kaitlyn, it's great talking to you. Thanks
Yeah, thank you.
for agreeing to be here with me. And yeah, see you around on Facebook, I guess.
Okay,
Bye.
see you.